Well, hey, this is Kimberly Ballard for Elijah and Moses channel. This is just an update about some of the information I gave previously about the meeting with Joe Biden going to Israel, and that it had something to do other than reducing the oil prices. That I said that I did not believe that that's what he was going there for, and now he's even saying that. So this is really interesting. I just wanted to give this little update that just appeared today in the New Arab News. And it says, Israel to take central focus in Joe Biden's potential for Saudi Arabia trip. Joe Biden said the potential Saudi visit was not about limiting oil prices. I told you it had nothing to do with that. It's going to have to do with that. I believe it's going to have something to do with Saudi Arabia and the King of Jordan and the Palestinian Authority dealing with things with Jerusalem as the capital, but most importantly the Temple Mount and East Jerusalem. Get this, Joe Biden's potential trip to Saudi Arabia has prompted backlash. However, the U.S. president on Saturday said he has not yet made up his mind on going ahead with the visit. Israel will be a central focus of Joe Biden's potential trip to Saudi Arabia. Should I repeat that? Israel will be a central focus of Joe Biden's potential trip to Saudi Arabia, the U.S. president said on Sunday. That was today. Despite media speculation, Biden said the visit was not about limiting oil prices, which in the U.S. have passed $5 per gallon amid heavy Western sanctions on Russia over its brutal invasion of Ukraine. The prices that I last saw for premium, now I haven't been to the gas station in a few days, but I saw on a billboard $5.29 for premium. So it's way above $5 a gallon. The commitments from the Saudis don't relate to anything having to do with energy. Israeli Daily Haaretz quoted Biden as saying, "It happens to be a larger meeting taking place in Saudi Arabia. That's the reason I'm going. And it has to do with national security for them, for Israelis." Now, don't you remember, I hate to keep interrupting the article, but I just have to interject things as I see them. Don't you remember that the Antichrist is supposed to promise Israel that they will be secure and provide security for them, let alone the phrase peace and security, and sudden destruction comes upon them and they shall not escape. But the fact that the Antichrist is supposed to promise Israel security, and this is coming about to be something that is a larger meeting taking place in Saudi Arabia, which is the reason why he's going. There has been mounting speculation that Saudi Arabia could normalize ties with Israel. Saudi Arabia has so far refused to follow its Gulf allies, such as the UAE and Bahrain, in establishing ties with Israel, but Israeli leaders have said normalization is now a key foreign policy aim for it. It is not clear if Biden will speak about normalization during his meeting. Although there have been reports the U.S. president is negotiating a deal between Israel, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia on the transfer of ownership of 2 Red Sea islands from Cairo to Riyadh, according to Axios. Speaking outside presidential airplane Air Force One, Biden continued, "I have a program. Anyway, it has to do with much larger issues than having to do with the energy price." What does that mean? I have a program. And it has to do with much larger issues. than reducing your gas prices. The president's potential Saudi trip has prompted backlash. On Saturday, he said he had not yet made up his mind on whether to go ahead. It follows reports in early June that first suggested the move was being considered. Biden pledged in his 2020 presidential campaign to turn the kingdom into a pariah and take Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to task for some of the things that happened in 2018, which I don't want to mention here. On Sunday, a source familiar with the planning for the trip said Biden will travel to Saudi Arabia and Israel next month, noting the White House is planning to announce the visit this week. The White House has assessed that the potential benefits of meeting Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia now outweigh any moral costs. Giorgio Caffiero looks at what Biden's visit could mean for U.S.-Saudi relations, and then it gives a link, and this is posted by the New Arab, June 12th, 2022. I'm reading it on the 13th. Biden's trip to Saudi Arabia could include a meeting with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And why do you think that is? But then look who else is going to be there and be involved. Earlier this month, at a time when it was thought the Middle Eastern trip would happen in late June, it was suggested Biden would be involved in a conference featuring Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Jordan. Guess who's in control of the Temple Mount? The King of Jordan, Bahrain, Qatar, and other Arab states, Haaretz alleged. It comes as Democratic and Republican politicians together put forward a bill seeking to boost defense collaboration between various Arab nations and Israel on Thursday. The Pentagon would participate in the effort, which aims at countering Iran and affiliated proxy groups and specifically concerns air defenses. Now I'm going to continue on with an article from english.alabi.co.uk, and I'm not going to read the first part of it, but facing some backlash for being seen as abandoning his campaign pledge, Biden defended his anticipated meeting with MBS, which is Mohammed bin Salman. He said this visit would help, quote, bring more stability and peace in the Middle East. Courtney Freer, a fellow at Emory University, explained to the New Arab how Team Biden will sell this visit as important to Middle Eastern stability and the interests of American energy consumers. Now, he just said he's not going there for any energy-related subjects or to reduce your gas prices at all. He's got a program, and he's going there for something much larger. You've seen some language from the Biden administration praising the Saudi role in extending the ceasefire in Yemen, she said. Quote, so they can basically market this as a visit that's much more about regional peace and security, as well as about helping American consumers, than about welcoming Saudi Arabia into the fold in a broader way than that. The other article just disagreed with that theory. A host of developments in global affairs, chiefly the Russian-Ukraine war and U.S. domestic politics, have been favorable to MBS and his standing with Biden. And by the way, they're also saying in the news that Israel's government that has been elected, that's in power right now, is failing. And there's an article also in the news saying that Benjamin Netanyahu may be planning a comeback. So isn't that interesting that that could be happening pretty soon? You know, Christ in Prophecy, Dr. David Reagan, says that the signs of the times indicate that we are on the threshold of the tribulation, a time of unparalleled carnage that will befall the earth. The earth will plunge into a period of time that the Bible describes will be the most horrific of all of human history. How do we know the covenant, the Antichrist signs, will provide Israel with a time of peace? They also state that the temple must be rebuilt in order for the Antichrist to set up an abomination in it. So there has to be some sort of peace treaty signed where the Antichrist guarantees peace for Israel and allows them to rebuild their temple without any Islamic reprisal. So that's very interesting that this meeting with Joe Biden is talking about peace and security for Israelis. Now I just thought we should look at another bit of information dealing with Joe Biden's prescription for ensuring Israel's future. This was written Thursday, September 30th of 2021 by Hugh Fitzgerald. This was from Front Page Magazine. Joe Biden showed up at the United Nations General Assembly on September 21st and delivered his prescription for ensuring Israel's future. Robert Spencer wrote about his speech here, and a report on Biden's commitment to Israel's security is here. Biden says two-state solution is the only way to end Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Joe Biden said Tuesday that a sovereign and democratic Palestinian state is the, quote, best way to ensure Israel's future. Skip down a little bit. Quote, we must seek a future of greater peace and security for all people of the Middle East, Biden said in his speech to the UN General Assembly. Why? Why must we seek a future of greater peace and security for all people of the Middle East? Why the Middle East and not, say, for the people of Latin America or Africa, after the costly fiascos, many trillions of dollars wasted in Iraq and Afghanistan, where naive geostrategists had hoped to transplant democracy? Are we now to take upon ourselves or ask the world to take on with us the hopeless task of turning the Middle East into Western Europe? Skipping further down, it says, the commitment of the United States to Israel's security is without question, and our support for an independent Jewish state is unequivocal, he said. Does Biden not realize that the commitment of the United States to Israel's security seems not quite without question, nor our support for the independent Jewish state seem unequivocal, given that the Bidenites are determined to provide hundreds of millions of dollars to the PA in direct violation of the Taylor Force Act? That is the law that was meant to prevent American aid from being given to the PA as long as it was continued to supply generous stipends to imprisoned terrorists. Skipping down, nor is that all that Biden has done to undermine Israel. He now wants to move back to East Jerusalem, the consulate, to the Palestinians that had been folded into the embassy when it was moved to Jerusalem by President Trump. This reopening of that consulate will help to legitimize the Palestinian claim to Jerusalem as the site of its future capital. And just as bad, they say, Biden wants to allow the PLO, a recognized terror group, to reopen an office in Washington. It was one of the first things Biden called for on January 28th when he had been in office for scarcely more than a week. It goes on to say, Biden has never spelled out what his two-state solution would look like. Would Israel be forced back within something like the 1949 armistice lines, which Abba Eban famously called the lines of Auschwitz, giving Israel only a 9-mile wide waste from Kakilia to the sea? Would Biden support Israel if the Jewish state insisted that in order to have secure, defensible, and recognized borders, as allowed by United Nations Resolution 242, it had to hold on to the Jordan Valley, as well as the major settlement blocks in the West Bank and the Golan Heights, annexed in 1981. Now, it's really important to put all of this information together, because if you just, pick out one article here or there, you're not going to have the full picture until you put it all together like a puzzle. Let's look at this article. Even though this was published by WorldNet Daily staff December 5th of 2021, it's titled Biden on Third Temple. We can always build back better. During the fourth night of Hanukkah and the annual menorah lighting ceremony, Joe Biden talked about the destruction of the Second Temple, which he compared it to the temple of our democracy. Never mind that democracy is a Greek concept. It was typical Joe Biden, just letting it roll. But later in the talk, he expressed optimism the Third Temple would be rebuilt. Whether it's the Temple of Jerusalem or the temple of our democracy, nothing broken or profaned is beyond repair. Nothing, he said, and we can always build back better or perhaps build back brighter. It was odd. Was he comparing the torching of the temple and the massacring of the Jews to the January 6th, quote, insurrection against the Capitol building? The speech was not without the president's signature gaffes, including telling VP Kamala Harris's husband, Doug, was leading the menorah lady. Biden also welcomed Israel's new ambassador to the United States, Michael Herzog. Following the introduction, Biden recalled incorrectly and inaccurately the former Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir, saying that he was going to be the liaison between Israel and the Egyptians following the Yom Kippur War of 1973. He must have forgotten he was still in college at the time. On the lessons of the holiday of Hanukkah, Biden said, "It's a story, provides a powerful lesson and nourishes the wellspring of hope. In darkness there's light, in cynicism there's hope, and optimism, an unyielding belief that miracles are possible." The menorah that was being lit was designed by the late Manfred Anson, an immigrant who escaped Nazi Germany. Biden also gave an honorary mention to one guest named Rabbi Aaron Glatt for encouraging his congregation to get the when we light this menorah in the White House, when Jewish families place menorahs in their windows, we're proclaiming liberty, he said. We're exercising the freedom that the Maccabees sought to simply practice their faith, and we're showing that there is still light, that even the most fragile flame can be sustained in a tradition and nourish the soul of a people. A little bit of light, wherever it is found, can dispel the darkness and illuminate a path forward. Government mandates equates with freedom? Well, it's Joe Biden. So, of course, the Second Temple was profaned, it was destroyed, and he's saying that they can build back better or brighter. And he's talking about the Third Temple there. So, what do you think his program is going to be? Is he going to do what I said before when he meets with Mohammed bin Salman, and the custodianship could include Saudi Arabia and the King of Jordan? It's a very interesting prospect of what might happen. The article was Biden talks about Third Temple in Jerusalem. Skywatch TV had posted an article about these very facts. Titled their article, "Despite Joe Biden's pledge to the Muslim world regarding ownership of Zion and the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, a secret plan to build the third Jewish temple is quietly underway." Of who's controlling the Temple Mount. And they stated here, "But the contest between Jews and Muslims over the Temple Mount is about to get far more complicated before it is temporarily resolved by the arrival of a Messiah who will for a time resolve the issues surrounding the world's top sacred site. The Third Temple, the subject of their new series, is one prophetic sign that God's word posts for those who seek the truth." Now, interestingly, now that it's later in the afternoon, the JewishPress.com is reporting that Biden's trip to Saudi Arabia is expected to take place July 15th through 16th. quoting an Israeli official. Date's not fixed yet. It goes on further to say Biden's itinerary is to include visits to Israel, the Palestinian Authority, and Saudi Arabia, where he will reportedly meet with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Now you should know how significant that really is going to be when I posted the video that I did on the word Iscariot was in the thumbnail, and I was connecting all the dots that the Lord was showing me, and how it's possible that the Saudi prince might be given some sort of role on the Temple Mount to play. Now, why would I say that? It's because King Abdullah II, the Jordanian kingdom, they were the ones that had custodianship of the two largest mosques in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca. And the Jordanian king used to have custodianship of those two mosques. But the Saudis managed to basically take custodianship over, and then the Jordanian king was removed from having the custodianship. So the Jordanian king has the custodianship of the mosques up there on the Temple Mount, and they're talking about, Saudi Arabia having control of the Muslim shrines up there on the Temple Mount too, because they already have the major custodianship of the two Mecca mosques in Saudi Arabia. So that would make sense that this person would be the one who would play a role up there, Mohammed bin Salman and King Salman himself. There's a real history behind that. It's not just a speculation or a thought on my mind. So the Jewish press just reported Biden expected to arrive in Israel on July 14th. And this was reported by Hannah Levi Julian, June 12th of 2022. So that was yesterday, on Saturday. SarahACarter.com has this article posted today on June 13th, 2022. And it was just published 2 minutes ago by Sarah Carter staff. It's titled Biden Administration Betraying U.S. Embassy Act of 1995, Establishing Palestinian Affairs Office in Jerusalem. The State Department has confirmed with the Washington Free Beacon that President Biden's administration is cuddling up to the Palestinian government, which could violate the Jerusalem Embassy Act of 1995. Quote, the Biden administration elevated diplomatic relations with the Palestinian government in what diplomats warn is the first step to walking back the United States' historic recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, writes the Washington Free Beacon. It says the 1995 Jerusalem Embassy Act mandated only a single United States embassy be placed in the holy city of Jerusalem. Opening a diplomatic office to the Palestinians in Jerusalem after the U.S. recognized Jerusalem as Israel's eternal capital, making it clear Jerusalem is part of Israel, has the same disastrous consequences as opening a formal consulate. David Milstein, who served as a special assistant to former U.S. Ambassador to Israel David Friedman, told the Free Beacon. This decision is a blatant effort to begin to unravel the implementation of the Jerusalem Embassy Act of 1995 and circumvent Israel's clear opposition to a formal consulate, especially since the Biden administration admits this step is part of its plan to still open a consulate. The purpose behind this move is to walk back the U.S. recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, erode Israel's sovereignty over its capital city, and signal support for dividing Jerusalem. It is outrageous and shameful, Milstein said. Members of Congress should use every tool at their disposal to block implementation of this decision. Now, one more thing I should mention from the Jerusalem Post is that it was reported on May 14th of 2022 that Biden assures King Abdullah that the U.S. recognizes Jordan as custodian of the holy places. The president recognized the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan's crucial role as the custodian of Muslim holy places in Jerusalem, the White House says. U.S. President Joe Biden met on Friday with King Abdullah II of Jordan and reaffirmed the close and enduring nature of the friendship between the United States and Jordan, the White House said. According to a readout of the conversation, Jordan is a critical ally and force for stability in the Middle East, and the president confirmed unwavering U.S. support for Jordan and His Majesty's leadership. The leaders consulted on recent events in the region and discussed urgent mechanisms to stem violence, calm rhetoric, and reduce tensions in Israel and the West Bank, the White House said. The statement goes on to say that Biden affirmed his strong support for a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and cited the need to preserve the historic status quo at the Temple Mount. The president also recognized the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan's crucial role as the custodian of Muslim holy places in Jerusalem, the White House said. The two discussed several other issues, including the political and economic benefits of further regional integration in infrastructure, energy, water, climate projects with Jordan, a critical hub for such cooperation and investment. I'm going to end with this, that Jordan demands total control of the Temple Mount, posted by Israel 365 News by Israel Kaznet on May 1st of 2022. And says Jordan fears it is losing its recognized status as official custodian of Jerusalem's holy Muslim sites, including the Temple Mount, Judaism's holiest site, and that was due to some incidents that happened up there. But experts say that the story goes deeper. He explained that Jordan is currently experiencing huge domestic economic and political crises with soaring energy and basic food prices, in addition to visible cracks within the royal family. Jordan's King Abdullah II is losing his image of stability. The country is also worried that Hamas is replacing it as custodian and gatekeeper of the Temple Mount. On top of that, Jordan is worried about Gulf states replacing it as the custodian of Jerusalem's holy Muslim sites. On Friday, Israeli journalist Yoni Ben Menachem tweeted that there is a disagreement between the UAE and Jordan over the Temple Mount. He wrote that the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, demands that the status quo on the Temple Mount allow freedom of worship for members of all religions, as stipulated in the standardization agreement between the UAE and Israel. King Abdullah opposes that and claims this violates the existing status quo and the peace agreement between Jordan and Israel. That is a groundbreaking statement by an Arab leader to make, especially given the timing, and suggests regional elbowing for control of the Temple Mount. According to Elbow, the Jordanian reaction to what is taking place on the Temple Mount is a result of its desire to secure its responsibility over the mountain and to ensure that no other regional player replaces it as custodian. The Jordanians do not like the Gulf states talking about the mountain, said Elbow, but Jordan is hardly in a position to secure its position. As part of its concern over losing control, Jordan reportedly submitted a letter to the Biden administration demanding the Waqf, Muslim religious guards, be given total control over the Temple Mount. It wants to institute a dress code for non-Muslims, as well as limit visitors to groups no larger than 5 people. While the Muslims had something like 100,000 worshippers up there. Unbelievable. Jordan is also demanding that Israel police no longer be allowed on the Temple Mount, even if rioters attack Jewish worshippers at the Western Wall or visitors to the site itself. Its demands also include giving the Waqf the authority to severely restrict non-Muslim visits to the Temple Mount, requiring non-Muslims to apply to visit in writing in advance, and setting restrictive tour routes of no more than 500 feet in each direction for non-Muslim visitors. Let's bring in Saudi Arabia to this mix. Posted in the Jerusalem Post, June 1st of 2020, says Saudi Arabia and Israel negotiating Temple Mount control. Saudi Arabia and Israel are conducting negotiations to allow Saudi representatives to join the Jerusalem Waqf Islamic Religious Trust that controls the Temple Mount and Al-Aqsa, according to a report Monday by Israel Hayom. These are sensitive and secret discussions conducted with ambiguity and low intensity with a small team of diplomats and senior security officials from Israel, the U.S., and Saudi Arabia as part of negotiations to progress the deal of the century, said senior Saudi diplomats to Israel Hayom. While Jordan had strongly objected to any change in the makeup of the Waqf, in recent months their stance changed after Turkey became involved in East Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. Now, I remember reading this article before in another video, but I just wanted to finish with this article because it shows that they have been in deliberations and secret negotiations with King Salman and Mohammed bin Salman to have some sort of diplomacy, have some sort of role to play on the Temple Mount. Turkey could get involved here. An Arab diplomat told Israel Hayom that if the Jordanians were to allow Turkey to operate on the Temple Mount without interfering, Jordan would remain only on paper in their definition in the special position of managing the holy places of Islam. They need money and the influence of Saudi Arabia in order to stop Turkish President Erdogan. Right there tells you that they really need Mohammed bin Salman and King Salman's support for the Temple Mount in order to stop Turkey from having power there. The diplomat added that Israel and the U.S. have an interest in Saudi support in order to progress the deal of the century and the annexation process. Moreover, Saudi Arabia brings with it the support of the UAE and Bahrain, the diplomat said. The diplomat stressed that it was still too early to say whether the Saudi representatives would actually be added to the Waqf. The intention is that the integration of the Saudi delegates will be in the constellation of observers only and not binding in order to not impact the special position of Jordan on the holy area, said the diplomat. Reports of warming ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel have become more frequent in the past years. Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, told Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas that our position towards the Palestinian issue has not changed. All the Arabs and we are with you. The establishment of a just and comprehensive peace must be worked, for peace is a strategic choice which will bring a permanent solution that will fulfill the rights of the Palestinian people, according to Channel 13. In an interview with German newspaper Der Spiegel in May, Jordan's King Abdullah II had stated, "In the Arab League, the one-state solution is still completely rejected. When the one-state plan was published 6 or 7 months ago, His Highness the King of Saudi Arabia said, 'No, we are with the Palestinians.'" Well, the end-time tribulation puzzle is certainly you can say is the setup of the end-time tribulation period is rapidly revealing itself little by little before our eyes, and it's really extraordinary how these things are developing. I just wanted to share how all of that's coming together about God's mountain and their view about it, and we already know some of their view about it, but hopefully this gives more details. Of course, it's so interesting that Joe Biden, of course, mentioned the third temple being built. So I just wanted to tell you what the latest plans were that were revealed today on Sunday, June 13th, for Joe Biden's trip, should he go there, and I believe that he is. But interesting that the first article verified it's not a trip about lowering your gas prices. He's got something bigger on his agenda. He's called the program. Now, when Joe Biden said he had a program, it's spelled P-R-O-G-R-A-M-M-E. And in government, this word means an officially organized system of services, activities, or opportunities that help people achieve something. So Joe Biden is saying that he has this program for Israel. Interesting, some of the definitions say a building development research program. Another definition is to build, develop, finance a program. Another definition, launch, carry out, initiate a program. So he's going there with some sort of agenda, we know that, even though he's claimed he's delayed his trip and all of that. And clearly they're saying tonight that he is going there in mid-July. Program is also defined as a set of related measures or activities with a particular long-term aim, a planned series of future events or performances. So, time will tell if this has to do with the mountain of God and the custodianship and how things will turn out with the PA and East Jerusalem. God protect Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And already Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel, as we know. So let's just keep praying. I just wanted to add this as a side note that CBN News reported that the Iranian people in 40 cities ran into the streets and protested their Islamic regime that is in power, that's causing all of these issues. And the largest conversion of Muslims to Christianity is going on in Iran. So there's a lot of lovely people there that are not part of, when you hear how bad Iran is and all of that. This is talking about the political party that's doing all these things, making them look bad. But in reality, 40 cities full of people ran into the streets protesting. And God bless them and give them strength. That just goes to show you cannot lump everybody together as though everybody's the bad guy. I hope you found this informative. And I just will give you more information as I come about figuring out what the Lord wants me to speak about. I really appreciate your support for this channel and this little tiny ministry that's not very big, but I hope to grow it, and I'm having a lot of opposition with this platform. So please support me, please keep watching and subscribe and share on social media. And remember, we are redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, taken out of the hands of the enemy and placed in the hands of God. The Messiah, Jesus Christ of Nazareth, is our salvation, our Yeshua. Shalom for now. Peace. Good night.